Expressway cannot be and should not be the centerpiece of Tampa. This community is the centerpiece of Tampa. Our expressway is here to make it more successful, make people more mobile, give people more accessible opportunities. It's about connecting communities, and we can't be the centerpiece of it. We're here to make the centerpiece, which is this community.
I think that's incredible. Not only are you actually physically connecting the communities with the expressway, but pickleball leagues. I'm thinking dog parks. It's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
Kudos to you and your team.
This episode is brought to you by CSG. CSG's SaaS solutions optimize every step of the tolling journey, from billing and payments to customer engagement, helping agencies maximize revenue through smarter, more integrated experiences. Make more, save more, and do more. Visit csgi.com. Welcome to another episode of TollTalk. I am Alex Ficcari, CEO and founder of Mojo. I'm one of your hosts here on TollTalk, but I have this stranger here. I cannot get rid of him. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Pat Wickets from CSG. Welcome back again, I guess.
Thank you, Alex. I didn't know if I was going to get the invite for the second time after the first go round, so I'm very happy to be here and excited for our guest today.
Well, I think the votes came in. You did a good job. I'm starting to wonder if you're going for Kaylee's job here.
You never know. You never know.
You did a good job as host. But no, thank you for joining us again here today. And so on this episode of TollTalk, we're really excited because we also have another returning guest. And really excited to have him here. Greg Slater, Executive Director of the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't get to tell you this, Greg, but I was excited. I was actually disappointed I didn't get to be in your first interview because I actually spent a lot of my earlier years in the following cities: Tampa, Tarpon Springs, and Apopka, Florida. So I am all too familiar with the Tampa area. And also my aunt lives in Tampa. And so when I do come down and visit, hopefully one of these days, I'll be staying with her. So it'll be a surprise for me.
So how long has it been since you've been to the city of Tampa?
So I was in Tampa about a year ago, briefly for just like a day or so. I didn't get to really immerse myself, but I was in town. So
whole different city than it was 10 years ago. And some of the amazing development, that's one of our challenges, is the whole city kind of grew up around the expressway.
Mm-hmm.
Our population is growing. Our traffic on the expressway is about 20% over where we thought it was going to be.
Oh, okay.
And the median age in the city of Tampa right now is 33 years old.
Holy cow.
Wow.
That's huge.
Super young, kind of vibrant city.
Wow, that is huge. I mean, if you know that typically the stereotypical thought of the age of and the demographic in Florida, it's much higher.
Right.
Yep. Wow, 33. That's impressive. Well, let's dig in. So I honestly didn't get, I did get to see your last episode with Kaylee. Fantastic. But for those who didn't get to see that, why don't we just tell them a little bit about you?
Absolutely. So I came to Florida about a little over 3 years ago. They recruited me from Maryland. I've been with Maryland DOT for about 25 years. Served in a variety of functions over the course of those 25 years. I started actually on field survey, doing a lot of kind of LiDAR work and technology work, and then kind of oversaw some project development. I was the director of planning and preliminary engineering kind of in the early 2000s, kind of building the capital program, heels of the recession.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent several years as the state highway administrator before becoming the Secretary of Transportation.
Well, that's great.
So I came to see a little over 3.5 years ago. They recruited me a couple of times kind of to talk about the position. Longtime executive director Joe Wagner was retiring. Really great guy, coincidentally from Maryland as well. So,
oh, wow.
We had this kind of track record of going from Maryland DOT to TIA, but they were an exciting organization, a really interesting opportunity to really come and serve a city that was going through a lot of growth and a lot of change.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Greg, before we dive into the big topics, what's one thing that's happening right now in Tampa's mobility landscape that you think deserves more attention?
So this whole city has grown up around. And so, we have our system, for instance, and much of the infrastructure around the city was built for a very different city.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're trying to really openly rethink what that looks like. And that could be how we're transitioning from an expressway to an urban environment. That could be where ramps are located and maybe some new ramps. Trying to address the growth is one thing, but trying to address the whole world that changed around us is a completely different type of a challenge.
Now, I've heard, as you've just reaffirmed for me, that the population change and the demographics have changed. And what can you talk a little bit about when you talk about the growth? Because you've had a lot of things happening. You have the expressway that's taking place, a big budget there. Things are moving forward. When you think about that, I guess you've had this national perspective and experience from being over at MDOT, which is great experience, and now you're here at the. I guess what makes this opportunity so unique? Is it innovation? Is it willingness? The community's participation. What's your big opportunity here?
It's all of the above, but scale is really important. And so, THEA offers the opportunity to do some things that I could have never even attempted at a statewide stage.
Okay.
And so you have this kind of smaller closed environment. So one, we're an independent special district of the state. So, I report to a board of directors of 7 people. The mayor is on our board, FDOT, local FDOT secretary is on our board. We have 1 county commissioner, and then we have 4 representatives that are appointed by the governor. And so we have independent authority where we go out and we we generate our revenue off the Leroy Selman Expressway, the long retired and late Leroy Selman, who, Tampa Bay Bucks great. Everybody always pictures that orange creamsicle jersey.
Exactly.
Those back. But we try and honor that legacy every day.
Nice.
And so what we do is we take 100% of the revenue that comes off this expressway and we invest it 100% back into this community.
Wow.
So it gives us the ability to do some things at a scale. But from an innovation standpoint, it allows you to do some things that are really, really difficult on a much larger system.
Okay.
We look at our system. So for instance, we've got a reversible expressway that we will routinely shut down in the middle of the day and test equipment on. So your system is serving a community.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit of a test bed for innovation, connected vehicle technology, new ITS equipment, detection, things like that.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. Can you walk us through what this means for Tampa and all the changes that you're making and, the plan for the expressway? And I know you guys have other things outside of the expressway too that are going to help urban mobility and stuff like that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. So let me kind of start with the growth that we're seeing in this region and some of the changes that we're seeing.
Right.
So one, more and more things to do downtown on top of the growth. Yeah. So, when you look at the growth in this region, it's happening in downtown Tampa. It's happening in downtown St. Petersburg, which is just to the south of us. But when you look at housing and costs and population growth, we've had growth at MacDill Air Force Base on the south side of the city. And so we're seeing more and more growth, not only in volumes, but we're seeing more and more growth between the economies. So, our traffic between Tampa and St. Pete is two-way. It used to be very directional. And so the last major project we did was an extension of the expressway over a local FDOT road, all on structure. That roadway today is seeing traffic that we thought we were going to see in 2030.
Wow.
And we're several years paced ahead. But one of the most interesting facts that we're finding is the majority of our growth is not happening during the peak. The majority of our growth is happening in the middle of the day. So, we're one of these communities where when the growth of work from home came, when you can live anywhere, why not live in sunshine, right?
Sure.
St. Petersburg holds the record for the most days of consecutive sunshine in the Guinness Book of World Records.
I did not know that.
So why not come to a place?
Yeah.
And so people that work from home, their travel patterns are a little bit different. And so on top of that growth, the whole city kind of densified around us. The area where our office is, much of what the expressway was 10 years ago was very industrial. That has completely changed.
Wow.
So what we have to do is make sure that when we're rebuilding the expressway, so expressway was 60 years old, so 62 now. Yeah. So it's in that process of, hey, we've got to start rebuilding this infrastructure. So you want to make sure that your path doesn't overly influence where you're headed, right? We've got to build for where Tampa is going and where this region is going. So it's not just about adding capacity and additional roadways. It's about making sure that our ramps are in the right location. It's about making sure that we're successfully transitioning into some of these neighborhoods in a safe place, these new high density. So think about the downtown core of Tampa. And, we've got an expressway that runs through the middle of it.
Yeah.
And we've got ramps, high-speed expressway ramps that are now feeding into like really dense urban environments. We've got Amalie Arena right off one of our ramps where the Tampa Bay Lightning play.
Yep.
So all of those dynamics
Yeah.
are really influencing how we're changing the expressway. We've got a ramp that comes down by the hockey arena that we're taking out. It's just, it's not in a great place, but we're going to replace it with another ramp. We've got backups coming into downtown Tampa today that we didn't have 10 years ago.
Right.
Because Tampa was a city that kind of went to sleep early, right? We didn't have the restaurants. We didn't have the entertainment that we have today. So it's very different type of an experience. But the other thing that we're doing from a community investment standpoint is we're really investing around our system. And so, a great example, I look at my office here and we have a really large dog park. So we built a dog park under the expressway in the shade. It's lit, it's got all the amenities.
Nice.
And we built a bike and pedestrian greenway for several miles under the bridge structure, kind of weaving in and out of the bridge pier. And so shade is a commodity in Florida,
Absolutely.
right? So you want to get out there and use that shade as a commodity. But we've really grown from that, where we've laid out a master plan where we're going to start activating the space under the expressway. So, think about the underline in New York. Think about the High Line, or the underline in Miami. The High Line in New York. So our expressway running through downtown are going to be there. We're still going to be these large bridge structures with ramps, but underneath the expressway, we're going to have recreational spaces, meeting
That's
spaces,
incredible.
pickleball courts, dog parks.
Wow.
We're creating this environment where we're activating the spaces under the expressway for community investment. And it helps us connect those communities on either side of it very seamlessly.
As you say all this, it traditionally, we've been on a couple episodes about this, and I'm not going to besmirch any agent. Nobody's doing anything bad here, but generally speaking, we talk about technology is always behind the tolling industry is behind the eight ball when it comes to technology. Sometimes that's purposeful, sometimes it's not. We also talk about customer journey, right? Customer experience. Pat and I, CSG and Mojo, both always doing obviously customer journey stuff, but the challenge and what I love about what I'm hearing, please correct me if I'm saying this correctly, if my assessment is right. Usually the customer journey is a byproduct of an old infrastructure here in tolling, right? It's what can we fit around it and window dress it the best we can. But what I really like here is the innovative thoughts, because it sounds like you're saying not only are we just enhancing the customer journey, but we're enhancing the customer relationship at a deeper level with the dog parks, the communities, the pickleballs, like that. You don't hear that often, from an agency. I mean, great agencies all around the globe, but that seems like a different approach. Is my understanding what you're saying? Is that accurate?
It is. And it's my fundamental belief that, not only FIA, but transportation agencies across this country, for us to do our job right, we need a 360-degree view of our customer and a 360-degree view of our system. And so for me to have a 360-degree view of our customer, I need to know what their whole journey looks like, why they're taking that journey, what they're doing. Is it work? Is it freight movement? Is it? And so I may be just one part of their journey, but if I know what their door-to-door experience is, why they're doing it, and who it is, not, I don't want to say who it personally it is.
Yeah, sure. No PII. No PII.
Anonymous, but the more I can understand about that, the better I can make their experience in the whole journey. Absolutely. Because they don't know and don't care who owns the system that they're driving on. Right. They're going to go from a city system to a county system to a state system to FIA, and they don't know that. They count on us to work together. For us to do that and for us to take advantage of some of the data analytics and AI, we've got to understand that whole journey and who that customer is in that journey.
Absolutely. And I love what you all are doing with the pickleball courts, the dog parks under the expressway. It helps humanize your brand, right? It helps humanize the agency, which I think is phenomenal. And I hope that more follow your lead. So thank you for being an innovator. But And you did touch on this on the last episode too about understanding the journey from door to door, right?
Yeah.
But what are you all doing to understand that journey beyond the roadway, to understand maybe payment behaviors or triggers that you guys could then leverage to improve the customer experience, whether it's on the roadway, making a payment, calling the call center, et cetera?
Yeah. What does a KPI look like?
Really great question. There's a couple of layers there. So
We'll peel it back.
Yeah.
Layers of onions. Yeah,
I'll peel the layers back. So we talked a little bit about that 360-degree view of our customer. You're getting to that 360-degree view of our system. And so what we're doing is, if you look at the technology that we have on our system, we have tolling infrastructure, we have ITS technology, and we have connected vehicle infrastructure. All of those have a very specific purpose, but they also need to collect data and feed the engine of what we're doing from the analytics.
Yeah.
So we have a toll system that was designed for minimum tolling points. Okay, so you can go end to end on our system and not get hit with a toll 15 times, right? Because that's
Right.
not super customer friendly. You can put a trip together and bill them that way. But what we found was, if you just look at the tolling system, you have a lot of blind spots.
Yeah.
But if your ITS system covers it, then it can tell us where people are getting on, where they're getting off.
Sure.
I'll use the downtown core as a great example, the viaduct that goes through the middle of downtown. We know X percentage of our system enters and exits in that downtown core.
Yeah.
Wow.
We are working on understanding that journey to then feed the signal systems that are 4, 5, and 6 blocks off the expressway.
Yeah.
And so I can manage the traffic on the downtown viaduct to manage the congestion off the system, to feed that through connections and use of tools like AI.
Yeah. Sure.
And I'll reconnect kind of my old job to that thought process.
Yeah.
And one of the bigger challenges that I had to tackle from my days in Maryland, it was very complex, was the traffic congestion on Kent Island.
Oh yeah. There you go.
The trip to the beach and the trip back to the beach.
Yep.
Well, what we found when I was in Maryland was when the tools came out like Waze and Google Traffic,
Yep.
it inundated the surrounding system and choked that community with traffic for hours.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of things. Even when we went to all electronic tolling on the Bay Bridge and all, tried a lot of tools. But ultimately, what we found was there was a tipping point of the amount of vehicles over the Kent Island Bridge that would break down. So we developed a system to try and figure out how do I connect that tipping point to signal systems over 100 miles over to the shore or over 80 miles and somewhat meter the traffic. So in the mornings, we want longer green times, get you flush through the system.
Yep.
As it starts to break down, you can meter it, because people don't feel 30 seconds extra at a signal 40 miles away.
Right.
They feel it when they're stuck in traffic and the recovery traffic sits there. So we then applied that principle to this system here on the downtown viaduct and said, okay, how can we use these systems to then manage what's happening on the rest of it by making sure it never breaks down?
Interesting.
You said something, and I think it's kind of curious because, well, I'd like to highlight it a little bit more. Let me phrase it that way. You mentioned AI, right, briefly. And, there's so much advancement. We all know that. But specifically, a lot more organizations and then solutions that are being generated are multi-agent solutions, creating these AI agents that are going to perform because they get more thorough data, better results. And now you got Grok 4 that just came out not too long ago. With that, I would say that the amount of data that you have to process, especially what you're talking about here, it can be overwhelming. So do you have a specific strategy that you can talk about?
With the data, it really does. So, you've got to feed the AI engine with the right data to get the right improvement.
Quality data.
And so, congestion is a great place to start with something like an AI, right? So for everybody who's ever been stuck in traffic, we'll get to the front of the queue and there's nothing there, right? Like everybody's had that frustrating point. Well, for every minute that you're in congestion, there's several minutes of recovery.
Right.
So, what we can do is use AI principles to feed digital twins, to connect to the signal systems, to take those data feeds to manage the system, even though it's not just our system, but managing the system. If I can never let it break down, then I never have to have them experience the recovery trap.
Yeah.
So we know that our system, so the ramp that comes off by Emily Arena, if you're a hockey fan, downtown, we know that every time there's a Tampa Bay Lightning game, the system coming into downtown backs up.
Yeah.
And it backs up because Tampa PD will come in and they'll hold off that ramp. And then you can either fight the game day traffic or you can go all the way past us and go back to Ybor and double back. We're going to take that ramp out. But in 5 years, our system will know the Lightning schedule.
Right.
Because of tools like AI and intelligence.
Yeah.
The system that we're going to need, and I don't want to say in the future because we're probably 4 to 5 years away from needing it. If we don't need it today, needs to be smart. It needs to be adaptable. It can't be, well, this is what it's going to be in the evening and this is what's going to be in the morning. Right. It needs to adapt to the real world conditions that we're seeing today.
Yeah.
And it needs to learn from those real world conditions to get into more predictive analytics and prevent them from happening. So it's not only about adapting, it's about learning from those patterns and predicting them and helping us understand where are my triggers. Yeah. So, okay, I could break down here, but a trigger from an analytics standpoint may be 3 miles off there when the volume at this intersection is my trigger, right? It's telling me that this is going to back up based on that origin destination. So, it's really about using the data the right way and not thinking about your tollway as the whole system. It's the system and how it's working together.
Yeah, I think, this smart technology is one of the most exciting aspects of our future, not only in this industry, but just generationally, I guess. How are you guys, taking that a step further now? Are you guys thinking about real-time driver notifications, sensor integration, digital tolling improvements? Can you share some of those plans? Or
we are, and I'll connect it a little bit to our connected vehicle pilot. So for those not familiar, several years ago, we were named one of the pilot sites by US DOT for the testing of connected and autonomous vehicles.
That's awesome.
And so, we have relationships with auto manufacturers. Our entire system is equipped with roadside connected vehicle technology to be able to maximize the benefits that vehicles have today. Yeah. And we're working with FDOT now as they're working on I-4 in a connector project that will take that connected vehicle technology and take it from Tampa to Orlando. So all that whole journey will be equipped. And so when we first started our connected vehicle pilot, we made assumptions on the return on investment, but also assumptions on the benefits operationally and safety that relied on the auto manufacturers. And it relied on the auto manufacturers. It relied on regulations coming out on the federal side. It relied on all these things that really never came to fruition. So what we did was we pivoted mid-pilot and said, let's focus on providing our customers, people using our system, with the maximum amount of information possible for them to make responsible decisions.
Yep,
that's great.
And know what's happening on the system. So, we kind of pivot that back towards what we're doing today. More and more message boards on our system, using tools like Sirius XM satellite radio to push messages out. Because we're an independent special district, we peer check ourselves with some of the European toll roads. So the European toll roads,
sure, absolutely.
And so European toll roads are, for the most part, private leases and companies come in. They innovate very, very differently. Some of the ones in our country, the roadways that are operated by Sintra and Transurban and some of the, they're really innovating in a really interesting space right now. And so we try to peer review ourselves against those. Nice. Well, over in Europe, they're really taking that concept and putting it into their ITS devices. So think about message boards that say, you've got an emergency vehicle coming up behind you 3 miles away. You've got a wrong way driver on the expressway. Those types of things where you're constant saturation of providing information to your customers in a balanced way in a variety of media. So it could be radio, it could be geofencing of your system and pushing messages out through like Waze and Google Traffic and some of those types of feeds. But our focus right now is putting that infrastructure in place so that, one, we can take advantage of all the advancements of connected vehicle technology the minute that they come out.
Yep.
But two, making sure that we're also preparing for a decade of mixed technology on our system.
Yeah. You know, this has been really interesting, and what I want to continue this is, and almost reaffirm, is that we had Pat and I actually had a conversation, and I had another episode with JJ Eden, and we were talking, and then a culmination of a TikTok that I saw. But you know, the idea of that the vehicle becomes the central component of not only just toll collection, but how do you interact? Because you also mentioned pedestrian safety innovation, right? And I happen to see we were in another episode, and somebody had mentioned, you know, where work zones are standardized, where basically the work zone proactively alerts the vehicle so the vehicle can avoid that. And I actually saw a video the other day where a pedestrian fell in the way of a car, just unrelated, just fell, and the car crashed itself to avoid hitting the person, you know, the unprotected person, right? Not the person in the car. So it made that kind of decision. So, you know, that really kind of opens us up to say, okay, there's these technologies that are here. The safeties need to be in place. Global Safety Week, you know, all of these things that we look at, you know, and to hear you say you're putting the pedestrians in there, you know, I would love to hear just from you maybe a couple other things when we talk about, we think about pedestrian safety and innovation. Car is certainly one point, right? But where else maybe how does that materialize elsewhere in other ways for you?
And I'm going to resist not going down the rabbit hole with JJ, because JJ is really leading the conversation on in-vehicle payments.
Sure. True.
If there's a TikTok of JJ out there, I want to make sure I find it somewhere.
Wait a minute. There's a TikTok of JJ out there that I haven't seen?
No, I think he was saying if there is.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
JJ is a real innovator.
Yes.
He really, has been on the forefront of a lot of the payment technology in our industry. I just think the world of him. But on the pedestrian front, you know, one of the more interesting research projects I saw years ago was the ethical decision matrix, right? So if you're an autonomous vehicle, and a ball rolls out in front of your car, or a child runs out in front of your car, how do you pick which one to hit?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we as a driver know that I would rather hit that wall than hit the child in that. But how do you program a car to make those types of decisions? And that's a real challenge in the industry.
Sure.
But if you look at like some of the connected vehicle technology that's out there today, I drive a Tesla. Fully autonomous Tesla. I was coming across downtown a couple of weeks ago, and my car sees everything. You know, it's camera-based, it sees everything.
Yep.
Someone was running, and, you know, as runners do, they're not going to slow down. They're going to run to the crosswalk and then stop and jog in place, right?
Yeah.
My car stopped. My car didn't know that person was going to stop.
Right.
And so they ran up and stopped, but my car stopped before them, because it was predicting that they were coming. One of the things that we're doing, we just tested it out in the Midwest with US DOT, and we have it in the design process now, is we have a lot of instances throughout the city where we have crosswalks at the bottom of our ramp.
Okay.
You know, dense urban environments or neighborhoods. And those crosswalks, many times you can't see them when you get on them. And so you're coming around this corner and they're there. So what we're doing, and the technology tests were very, very successful, is we're equipping all of our crosswalks with camera detection.
Okay.
That camera detection is then going to communicate with a sign at the top of the ramp.
There you go.
That tells that driver that there are pedestrians at the base of that ramp in the crosswalk that you don't see yet.
Fantastic.
And so kind of giving them that information, but also intervening when we need to say, hey, you're going from expressway travel to urban dense travel, and the priority of travel is different.
Mm-hmm.
Work zones aside, or disabled vehicle aside, when someone's doing 60 miles an hour on an expressway, pedestrian safety is not their focus, right?
Right.
But once you enter that community road or that dense urban environment, the pedestrian safety is a higher element than you getting from point A to point B at 60 miles an hour. So you've got to transition the behavior, and you've got to transition the mindset of the driver when they do that. And so it's kind of a learning process at some point. So it's somewhat traffic calming, but utilizing technology to really get their attention.
So, Greg, are you using AI or machine learning in any other areas of your business?
Of course, we're using it on our toll systems. We're using it on our business systems. Even like you think about something like HR, for instance.
Right.
Sure.
Like let's say we put a job application or a job opportunity out there, and you get 300 resumes. Right, and our local universities have great AI centers. You can feed those resumes looking for keywords and experience, and help me whittle that down. Help me get to. So AI has so many business use functions today that we're using. It's funny. I was just meeting with our communications team and talking about, the narrative around your organization. Right, that's a really important thing for any CEO. Like, what do people think 100%. Of your organization?
Yep.
What do people think of your system? So you think about that. 20 years ago it was different. Social media came in, that changed the whole conversation. Now AI has come into that kind of domain. So what happens is you have to think about every document, every speaking engagement, everything that you put out as part of feeding that AI engine. Yeah. And so, you think about that narrative around your organization, it's different today than it was. And you've got to think about what you're feeding the engine. I think about a young engineer that is graduating from college, highly sought after, is going to go to Chat GPT and say, is Thea a great place to work?
Absolutely.
If the engine doesn't feed that, he's moving on or she's moving on to the next place.
See, now you're talking my language. Let me tell. Well, you've been talking my language the whole time, but let me add to this. So, right now, what you're talking about, so historically, when people do a search, they go to Google, right? They're using search engine optimization, right? They type in a keyword phrase. That keyword is either in the website or it's not. Now they have GEO, which is generative engine optimization, right? And so it is looking at the learning language models, and it's saying, okay, whether it be AEO or answer engine optimization or GEO, it's looking at it and saying, can I infer meaning from what is written here? It's kind of what you were talking about as well, looking at that. It's maybe that job applicant didn't necessarily have the term, Python programmer or whatever the role is, right? But it could infer that this is a candidate based upon the other language, but that takes intelligence to do it. And so I think that's, when you talk about AI in the business and it's tying into everything we're doing, I think the reality is it is taking a much different shape, and it is reassuring to hear that you're using it there as well.
It is, and we've had a handful of interviewees that come in that are obviously using AI when we're interviewing them. They weed out really quickly.
Oh,
but even on the technology front, and this is not a new technology for us, but fingerprinting cars. So when you fingerprint a car, for instance, using our toll system, it's not just reading the plate. Eventually, it's learning about that car. It's the blue Honda with this plate that's got the dent in the right bumper. It's got the bumper sticker. The more data points that our system can gather, the more efficient that system can be in very quickly processing that transaction.
Yeah. Well, and I think that people
use that technology.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize. Some people will have the scary conspiracy theories about AI, but the truth is, and I don't know if you agree on this, Pat, but when you're talking about customer service or anything like that, it's really one of those things. We have our expectations set on what customer service is by everybody else other than us, right? You go to Chick-fil-A, you have an expectation. Mm-hmm. You go to Delta, you have an expectation. You go anywhere you go to purchase or acquire, those organizations are setting expectations that change the whole, the whole ecosystem. And so when they're on the road, they have a higher expectation now. So how are you going to keep up with the request to increase population, the increased volume of data? You can't do it manually. You need that AI. So as far as customer experience goes, I mean, it's a big aspect of it.
And I think, Greg, you kind of touched on it, right? It's knowing the blue Honda with the dent in it, but it's also knowing that Mrs. Smith is dropping her kids off at daycare, right? Yeah. So Thea, like other agencies, are thinking more like service providers, right? How are you guys designing that for the long term?
Yeah. You mentioned long term. That piqued my interest too. Yeah.
Well, they think about the customer experience,
Right.
right? So that's what we're thinking about.
Beautiful.
And, the customer experience certainly is influenced by, am I stuck in traffic?
Right.
You've got that. Nobody likes to pay a toll and sit in traffic, right? If I want to pay a toll, I want it to be flowing, right? I get a data feed every day on how many people paid a toll and were more than 20 miles an hour below the speed limit.
Wow.
Every single day I get that data. And so thinking about that as a metric on, okay, how do I get that moving? Yeah. How do I get those transactions moving? But when you think about the customer experience, it's also things like maintenance. We are going through, we just put a new asset maintenance contractor out there. We've got a great contract with a company called Weber. Yeah. And we changed all of the performance metrics. And so if you look at our system today, and it directly relates to customer experience.
Right.
They just, and this is going to be unheard of for most in the toll industry, they just pressure wash the entire expressway. Right? And so,
I love this.
We're doing proactive maintenance. We're streets, we have a litter crew that's out on the system end to end every single day.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're cutting the grass differently. They're walking around thinking about, and so what I tell our team every day is, you'll see me, if I walk up, we have a greenway and there's a Starbucks on the other end of it, right? Yeah. If I walk up the greenway to Starbucks, who's the guy in the suit that's picking up the trash on the way?
Yeah.
Right? But I want every single one of our employees to think that way.
Sure, absolutely.
Eyes and ears. That grass needs to be cut. Be that eye and ear for our customer at the same time, because they don't always know who to call. So it's not only about getting to know them, but it's about being a good neighbor to the people that live around us and making sure that we're responsive to them. It's about taking a little pride in, I'm a little neurotic about my yard. So, me too. You be that eyes and ears for our system, right? Like the grass needs to be cut, and taking some pride in it.
Sure.
We want every one of our employees to be that data source and take that pride in our system. But it also takes everybody else kind of saying, I'm not going to be offended if somebody in the other department comes to me and says, that grass looks
right.
Well, and just I want to leave one thought. I'm sorry if I was going to interrupt you there, Pat, but we talk about the customer service and the data. There's another very relevant aspect. When you talk about the pressure washing, it really triggered a thought for me because I don't know if most people are aware of this, but Chick-fil-A, for example, uses AI, visual AI, to determine the crispiness of the fries in the baskets. Huh. Like they actually have it there scanning, checking temperature, and telling you if it's time to put new fries down.
Wow.
And so but that leads, it's not just, can we make good fries? It's, can we make this great customer experience that's consistent? That are they implementing, and again, I want to make it a whole big AI thing.
It's that consistency,
but it's that drive to that customer experience, how the data plays a role in what we do, whether you're moving cars, people, or French fries, right? And so,
but it brings challenges, right? Yeah. Do the absolute best that you can, and then try and go one step further.
Exactly.
And so, it's funny you mentioned Chick-fil-A, right? Like, if you look at private sector industry on customer experience, customer service, the two companies that always rank the highest are Chick-fil-A and Nordstrom. Mm-hmm. The reason that they rank highest, they both do one thing that nobody else does. Chick-fil-A is the only fast food restaurant they're going to go in that they're going to bring you your food. They're going to ask you what your name is at the counter. Nordstrom, there could be 25 people in line, and that cashier is going to walk around the counter, hand you that merchandise, and say, do you need anything else? Mm-hmm. So if you take that mindset, you take that to your technology, you take that to everything that you do to your employees and your whole team. And if let's say somebody has a challenge, because they always have challenges with their toll system, or their registration gets suspended because they have back due tolls or something like that, right? Yeah. How powerful is that conversation a week later that says, hey, I just want to call you back and make sure you got your issue resolved. Being responsive. And in government, to me, that is never handing someone off to someone else without following that chain.
Yep.
Taking that customer service seriously, because that's your interaction with them.
Yep.
That's your toll customer. That's the person that is appreciative. That's the person that's happy to pay $1.50 to go a little bit faster.
Very well said.
Because they know that those dollars are being invested back in the community, and they know you're a good organization that's going to serve.
Yep. So I think it's safe to say that you and your small but mighty team out there, or down there in Florida, I should say, are going through a transformation like many agencies.
Now a message from our sponsor.
The business of tolling is complex. Trusted by the world's most respected brands, CSG transforms every customer interaction, communications, billing, payments, and more into a smarter, more profitable outcome. Make more, save more, do more. CSG, solving tolling's toughest challenges simply.
What are some of the toughest challenges that you are facing today?
Change.
Yep.
Change is tough in many. When you're, shifting an organization, like many organizations across this country, not just kind of picking on our own.
Sure.
But just shifting an organization from a transaction focus to a customer focus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shifting your mindset from, well, they're off the expressway, so I don't have to worry about them, to that door-to-door journey, kind of shifting that whole mindset.
Yeah.
But most importantly, to me, it's shifting the perspective from expressway focus to community focus.
Yeah.
Yep.
What we do every day, we can do it a variety of different ways.
Sure.
And if I can solve my issue in a way that helps the community meet their goal, or helps the port be more efficient running freight out of Port Tampa Bay, or helps people more efficiently get to the airport, the more goals that we can achieve on our own that lift everyone else, that's that community focus. And so ultimately it comes down to what's important for the expressway is important, but what's important for this community should drive our decision.
Yeah.
And it's a different mindset when it comes to making your decision. I've worked for transportation agencies and a lot of large and small teams over the course of my career. There are a lot of organizations across this country that say they're customer focused, that say they're community focused. But until that's the lens in which you are making your decisions,
right,
you're not truly there.
Well said.
Our expressway cannot be and should not be the centerpiece of Tampa. This community is the centerpiece of Tampa.
Wow.
Our expressway is here to make it more successful, make people more mobile, give people more accessible opportunities.
Beautiful.
It's about connecting communities, and we can't be the centerpiece of it. We're here to make the centerpiece, which is this community success.
Wow. I think that's incredible. Not only are you actually physically connecting the communities with the expressway, but pickleball leagues. I'm thinking dog parks. It's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
Kudos to you and your team.
Yeah.
Well, I always smile at our dog park because I can see it out my office window, and with two separate sections, one for large dogs, one for small dogs. And if I'm ever having a bad day, I just walk out back because the dogs are always happy to see you.
Absolutely.
Like, no matter how bad of a day you're having, the dogs are happy to see you.
Well, and I definitely, I would think I'd be pretty inspired going out there and just go play with the dogs midway in my day. But, as we wrap this up here, it sounds like great innovative things that are taking place. And this is going to help our viewers learn so much. But I would like to kind of see if you could maybe close us out with some thoughts that, staying, I don't want to say competitive, staying, I think, innovative, right? And thinking forward thinking. As a progressive agency, I guess you say what goes through there. I mean, what are your pitfalls that you're trying to avoid to not fall behind? And then more importantly from that is there anything disruptive that's in the foreground or that you're working on that excites you?
Absolutely. And so first, change is always hard.
Right.
People hate change, but expect progress.
Right. Exactly.
So you have to keep pushing forward. And we are in a point in our industry, COVID was a big disruptor. What's the next disruptor that's coming?
Right.
And we are not, when I first started in this business almost 30 years ago, you could look 10 and 20 years in the future and kind of see, okay, this is where we're going to be. Our planning horizon today, which is one of our greater challenges, you're lucky if you get a year or two. You know, you can see the growth and you can kind of keep in front of it, but the world is different right now. And we, as we're rebuilding, you know, the whole interstate system across this country is being rebuilt. Much of it with toll technology, much of it in other platforms as well. But we can't think about where we were in 1960 when we plan for the future. We have to think about where we are headed as a community, where we are headed as an industry, where we are headed as a system, to make sure that the system that we're building that will last another 100 years meets the needs of that community that we can't even picture it. And it doesn't matter, you know, there are about 25 opinions on what the system of the future is going to need and what it's going to look like. And you can debate that all day, but we have to start building it right now.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, that's a real challenge for us. You almost have to pick a path and build the foundation. What we're doing in Tampa is we're kind of building the foundation to be adaptable for a variety of those functions. And so, you know, one of our greater challenges is getting people to understand that the last 10 or 20 years is not an indicator of what the next 10 or 20 years is going to be. The technology is going to be out there that we don't even know about yet. And that could be payment technology like JJ's working on. That could be adaptable systems. It could be a variety of functions in terms of high-tech mobility hubs, you know, EV tolls and urban air mobility are all coming to play. And so ultimately we need the system to interconnect. We need the system to work for where those customers are going to be. And that requires a mindset shift. It requires thinking differently. I'm going to date myself with that, but I tell our team, we have to shape the Etch-a-Sketch. And those of us of my generation know what the Etch-a-Sketch is, right? It's like, let's shake the Etch-a-Sketch and figure out where it needs to be. And, you know, you look at whether it's a transit system or whether it's a toll system or whether it's freight movement or air mobility, you know, we've got the whole community around us has changed, and people, where they're coming from and where they're going to are different. When they're traveling is different. How they're traveling is different. We just have to think about that journey and change the mindset. This next generation, you know, 10 years ago, nobody had data scientists in their building. Nobody, you know, now the fiber that we're putting in our system is as important as the asphalt.
Absolutely.
Concrete. You know, it's going to feed our systems. But the part that I think is critical, there are two pieces that I think are extremely critical that I believe that we need to really lean into as an industry, is fully harnessing the data analytics around what our system is.
Data analytics,
And then on the risk side, cybersecurity. So,
absolutely.
You know, critically important for us to focus on that, not just with our office systems, but you think about freight movement, fuel trucks moving up I-4. You think about, you know, if we're interconnecting our system, I don't want somebody to find that least common denominator and take control of the vehicle. I don't want somebody to create a cybersecurity today. If it's not there today, is slowly becoming a traffic safety vulnerability.
That's a great point. Well,
I think we've got to start paying attention to that.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Greg, I want to thank you very much for a very insightful episode.
Absolutely.
I mean, this was just great stuff. And, you know, thank you so much for taking the time out. And it meant a lot. We appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I'll try to get through your neighborhood a little bit, get a good crab cake one day soon.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know when you're up in the area. All right. But, well, hey, everybody, thank you for watching. Definitely want to thank Greg Slater for coming out. And I want to thank my guest, Pat Wickets from CSG, our sponsor. And we hope you're enjoying these episodes of Toll Talk. And make sure you catch Greg's previous episode as well for some great stuff as well. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more great episodes from Toll Talk. I'm Alex Carey. Take care.